How's it going, everybody? My name is Bryce Zimmerman, and I'm your host of the newest golf podcast, the Back Nine Banter. Basically, this new golf podcast is going to be talking about the world of professional golf, whether that's the PGA Tour, the LIV Tour, the DP World Tour, the Korn Ferry Tour, etc. The world of professional golf is talked about a lot, but there are some aspects of it that aren't talked about so frequently, and that's why I wanted to start this podcast. I'm a college golfer, Division I college golfer at the University of Hartford. I'm a junior. I've been playing golf my whole entire life, competitively for about 10 years now. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of success and play in some decent amateur events and had a little bit of success coming out of junior golf, but most of my success was in junior golf. So within this podcast, I just want to highlight, whether it's not even professional golf too, but also, looking at the U.S. Amateur or some high-level amateur events and potentially having some high-level amateur players as guests down the road, depending on where this podcast ends up going. But I just have a strong love for the game of golf and just professional golf and just love watching it, hearing about it, reading about it, whatever it may be, and just love talking about it and figure there's no better way to talk about it than on a podcast. So the first episode of this week is going to be about the amazing Nick Dunlap and the history that unfolded at the American Express. And there's no better person to talk about it with than my teammate Connor Byrne. And I hope you guys enjoy this week's episode of the Back Nine Banter, and hope you guys enjoy many other episodes following that. Welcome, everybody. The first ever episode. I'm your host, Bryce Zimmerman, and welcome to the Back Nine Banter Podcast. What a week to start the first ever episode with Nick Dunlap, the amateur, the 20-year-old sophomore from Alabama, taking the win at the American Express. Just an unbelievable performance. So we'll dive into that. But first, I want to welcome my co-host for week one, Connor Byrne, my teammate here at the University of Hartford.
Thanks for having me in the first podcast. It's an honor. I'm a teammate of Bryce's. I'm from Northern Ireland. I'm a senior. And I've played 4 years here at the University of Hartford. And I've been playing golf. I'm 21 now. I've been playing golf almost 17 years. So it's a passion of mine. And this is a different thing I've got into now, doing podcasting golf with Bryce. So it's definitely something we're excited to do. I'm just excited to talk about the PGA Tour, especially this week with Nick Dunlap. It's inspiring for us to see an amateur in college younger than us winning on tour. So we'll dive deep into that. And I'm looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you being here and looking forward to a good podcast for a good first podcast. And we'll see how it goes from here. But yeah, just starting off talking about the AMEX, Nick Dunlap, just what an unbelievable performance, going throughout the week. First he shoots 8 under 64 to start the week, which ended up being 2 shots back of Zach Johnson to start the first round. And, you never know with an amateur, there's been amateurs in the past that put up good numbers, and you never know what they're actually going to do going for the rest of the tournament. More often they'll make the cut by 1 or 2 and, do absolutely nothing on the weekend, but he just kept rolling. 64, 65, 60, and a final round 70 to win by 1 over Christian Bezuidenhout. Just an unbelievable performance and just something absolutely historic. First amateur to win since Mickelson did it back in 91. And you think, could that be the last time that's ever happened? And or did we watch history? Is that the last time it'll ever happen? I don't think so, personally. I think there'll be another amateur because just how good the college golfers are that we've played against, and college golfers in general now are just absolutely amazing. And I think this Nick Dunlap win will get a lot more sponsors exemptions for amateurs moving forward. Wondering what your thoughts were on the win.
I think that this is going to be the start of a new trend for amateurs really coming out in the PGA Tour. I can see the likes of Gordon Sargent now playing a lot more PGA Tour events, and people like Nick Dunlap and those guys are fearless on tour, whereas before, you didn't really have many amateurs in college playing tour events, and when they did, they were maybe making the cut, which was a good week for them. When, as you said, Phil in 91 was the last time an amateur won a PGA Tour event, and for Nick Dunlap to do that, it shows that he has what it takes to become an all-time player. That 8 under round 1 was special, but to keep going round 2, round 3, round 4,
almost shooting 59.
Yeah,
Round
exactly.
too. I mean, he was 11 under with 3 holes to go, and only ended up birdieing the last. So
when you have JT there shooting 61 and not being in the lead, that's when you have those guys feared of you when you're an amateur. That means you're doing something right. And it'll be interesting now the next week or two to watch Nick Dunlap closely and see what steps he makes in his career.
Yeah, for sure. This was his 4th PGA Tour start, first ever made cut on the PGA Tour. Ends up winning. He ended up getting a sponsors exemption to Puerto Rico. I think he missed the cut by 1 or 2 there, and he did play in the U.S. Open because of his U.S. Junior win, which ended up missing the cut there as well. So just really cool to see, first made cut and followed up by a win. That up and down on the last though, that was unbelievable.
That was special. We were watching it on TV and we were wondering if he knew that he only had 1 shot lead going down 18 because obviously Christian made birdie in 18 and we didn't know if he knew or not, but I'm sure somebody in the crowd there was telling his caddy, and that tee shot he hit was understandable. He had to go
right the right side for sure.
Yeah, and the second shot was a little nervy, to be honest. He got a nice little break hitting a spectator coming down, but that chip all downhill, run to the green running away from you, water over the back, history on the line. That took some courage to make that putt and in front of everyone to win. That was inspiring to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he was making putts from all over the place all week. Absolutely no shock at all seeing him make that putt at the last.
Yeah.
But aside from, we'll get back to Nick Dunlap here in a second, but Sam Burns, just, he was basically in control of the golf tournament for most of the back nine. And, when he had that loose swing on 17, which ended up being a water ball, making double there, and then Nick Dunlap didn't have the tournament, but Sam Burns was kind of, you could tell he was mentally out of it at that point, and I think that was right after, that was Zayton Howe making that birdie on 18 to get to 28, so definitely put that pressure on Dunlap that he didn't know that, because he said in his interview after that he thought he had a 2-shot lead. Going down 18, he thought he had some wiggle room, but obviously Sam Burns finishing double-double to finish tied for 6 at 25 under.
That hurts the paycheck.
Yeah, that definitely did hurt the paycheck, I'm sure. You don't like to see somebody finish like that, but obviously the whole golf world was rooting for Dunlap, so I don't think anybody was really too upset with the Sam Burns finish. But good week for JT as well.
Nice to see him getting back.
After the struggles, he hasn't won since 2022 with the PGA, so I know that he'll get his first win back. But that third round 61 was just,
it was nice to see JT on social media as well. He's very open about his struggles on the golf course, whereas other people like Spieth, they don't really interact much on social media. So it's nice to be able to relate to a player like JT whenever they're struggling. Like, he posts his goals and his problems on Instagram, and it's just nice to see what he goes through, because we all go through it. We just go through it more than they do. So to see him get back in contention again was nice. He's put a lot of haters. He made a lot of haters quiet this week who were happy to see him play bad last year. But just to get back to your point about Sam Burns, I really think that par in 16 hurt him, because that approach shot that came up short 20 feet, I think that got him, and then Nick Dunlap making the birdie put a little bit of pressure on him, and then that swing on 17 was such a surprise to see him put in the water. But it just shows you the best in the world feel the pressure just as much as we do.
Going back to that 16th hole, it was funny seeing them all kind of flare their second shots out so far right to avoid that bunker, because that pin was tucked so far back left that if you found that bunker, you were basically, there was no chance of slim chance of you getting up and down or even holding the green. I mean, that bunker's 18 feet below the surface of the green, so chances of you even getting it out, every year they post the videos of the tour players just absolutely struggling getting out of that bunker, and it's funny to see, but they all did the right play, hitting it out right, but Sam Burns, I think it was like 45 or 50 yards, and leaving it to hit like 35 feet for birdie. I mean, that's not the play, but obviously you can't hit every shot perfect, and all these guys are in the mid 25 to high 20 under pars. So, I mean, it was just an unbelievable week of golf for a lot of players. But yeah, definitely unfortunate for Sam Burns, but happy for Nick Dunlap. And following that, um, you know, talk about another player that I was following this week, Zalatoris. Obviously he had back surgeries, a lot of putting struggles. He's putting with the broomstick now, obviously not anchoring, but his first start back was in Albany for Tigers event, and just was absolutely struggling. With the first, I think it was first round 82 or something like that, and ended up shooting in the 60s the next round. But it was good to see him make the cut. He was 18 under par, tied for 34th, which tied for 34th at 18 under par. That's just absolutely absurd, in my opinion. So good to see him making the cut. Definitely a player to look out for at the Farmers this week, as he lost in the playoff to Luke List 2 years ago there. So another player that I was looking out for this week was Daniel Berger, his first start in nearly 2 years.
Straight vibing.
With his back injury. Nice to see him make the cut. I'm sure, I don't know what his thoughts were this week, but he was 17 under, tied for 39.
It's pretty impressive for your first start in a while. 17 under.
See, I know I saw a post on Instagram saying that he was 4 under bogey free the first round, which is just cool to see. That after all that time off, someone like that still got it, and hopefully he can play some good events. I know he's going back to the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, I think in 2 weeks, where he won 2 or 3 years ago, I believe. So it'll be nice to see him the next couple weeks, what he does. So good to see those players back in action after injuries. You like to see good performances after injuries, so hopefully they can pick up on some things to come.
But this West Coast swing as well, it's a nice little run of events for them to pick up some confidence. There's the courses aren't overly hard. They can go low in a lot of those courses, like Pebble Beach and Phoenix, which will set them up nicely for the Florida coast and then building into the Masters. So I feel like those kind of players who are getting back into are using these events just to pick up momentum, get their competitive juices flowing again, so that they're primed for the Masters and looking to make a run. But with the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am coming up this week, do you think it was a surprise last week's winner Nick Dunlap pulls out, or were you expecting that?
I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to talk about with that, but I thought that he might have. He's the talk of the golf world right now, so you would almost want him to see him at the Farmers Insurance Open. But I definitely understand where he's coming from in terms of wanting that week off, going back to Alabama, being with his family, whatever the case may be. But definitely still a little shocked because, like I just mentioned, he's the talk of the golf world. Like probably every media outlet, a lot of people definitely want him there. So to see him pulling out of that was a little shocking, but not a little shocking at the same time. It's he's doing whatever he feels like is best for himself. But
at the same time, you want to ride that wave whenever you're on top.
Absolutely.
I think it would be hard for any of us if we won a tournament like that to pull out the next week. Even if he shoots a million over and misses the cut, it would have been interesting to see if he could go back to back.
Yeah, for sure. He'll, I don't know when we'll see him next, but obviously he's got a decision to make. He can turn pro whenever he wants this year. I know that if I was in his position, I would probably turn pro just because of the signature events that are starting this year. Starting at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am is the first signature event of the year, which is going to be condensed field. I don't think there's a cut. So that's essentially guaranteed money for a player like Nick Dunlap, who's in college. He can get his career just up and started right then and there. So interested to see what he's going to do, if he's going to turn pro in the middle of the season, if he's going to wait to still play in the Masters as an amateur. Obviously, with the win, he can still play in the Masters if he turns professional. And so it'll be really interesting to see from a fan standpoint, what he's going to do. And I'm sure the golf world is going to be anticipating his next steps going forward.
Yeah, everybody's watching him closely. And obviously, like you mentioned with the Masters exemption, he doesn't get that US Open exemption if he turns pro. But I feel like a player like him, with the confidence he has, I don't think he's worried too much about losing that invitation, because he probably expects to get in anyway through his play. So it'll definitely be very, very interesting to watch his next steps if he's going to turn pro, stay amateur. But I think personally, I would turn pro. I feel like if I just won my first PGA Tour event and I got my tour card through 2026, I'm still in college, I would want to get out there as soon as possible and expose myself to the tour again and see how much money I could make in the next 5-6 weeks and just ride that wave that he's riding at the moment. You know, his confidence is probably the highest out of anybody in the world right now.
For sure. I know you mentioned the U.S. Open. I've actually read on a couple different outlets that I think if he does turn pro, he can still play in the U.S. Open. I think the USGA allows that. I think the one major that wouldn't would be the Open. I think you still need to remain an amateur if you want to play in the Open Championship. But, I mean, if he turns pro, the one extra major that he would get in is the PGA Championship. So he's in the Masters no matter what he decides. He's in the U.S. Open, I think, no matter what he decides. He won't be in the PGA if he remains AM. But I'm sure if he did turn pro, I'm sure he would find a way to be in the Open.
Like in the Open as well, they have the qualifying series. I'm sure he would breeze through the regional and sectional qualifying for the British Open's qualifying stages. So I'm sure that wouldn't be an issue for someone like him.
Yeah. So looking at his world golf ranking, there's a lot of heat,
a lot
of controversy from a lot of different people. Looking at it when it came out, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, but jumping from 4,129th in the world to 68th as an amateur, I know
it's a big jump.
It's a massive jump, and I'm not gonna get too deep into the official world golf rankings and my feelings on it, but I definitely don't believe he should be 68th.
It's crazy that he's ranked better than Dustin Johnson.
Yeah.
But also, I think we talked yesterday, Akshay Bhatia is ranked 95th, 94th.
Yeah, 94th.
Yeah, 94th. I think that's kind of crazy, the fact he's been exposed so long in the tour. And he's been playing out there for a while, and yet he's still ranked higher than Nick Dunlap. Obviously, Nick Dunlap won a massive event, but
yeah,
I don't know if that merits 68th compared to 94th for someone who's been out there a while. And
I mean, he jumped over 4,000 spots in the world golf rankings, and it's like you look at Tiger's event up in Albany. It's a 4-round event, no cut invitation with world
20 players.
Yeah, 20 to 25 players, and Tiger plays in it, comes in like 18th out of 20th, and jumps like a million spot. No, he jumped a significant amount in the world golf rankings, and it's like that's a guy. Obviously, Tiger's Tiger, but it's like I feel like it's just pity world ranking points at that point, and it's like it doesn't really mean much except for the top 50 get into the Masters, and I think there's other criteria for the other majors. But when you just think about the official world golf rankings in terms of like what it's done for live golfers and all that, it's just like I'm pretty sure he's higher than I saw that he was higher than Patrick Reed. It's like that's a multi-time PGA Tour winner, Masters winner. It's like I don't really feel like. I mean, those guys on Live did their thing. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of controversy because it's a 54-hole event, so you're not going to be getting world ranking points unless they change it. But Nick Dunlap being higher than Patrick Reed, Phil Mickelson. I mean, Phil's dropped off a little bit, but that the names of that, Dustin Johnson, like you mentioned, I'm pretty sure Cam Smith and DeChambeau and Koepka
those guys have.
I think they're higher than him just because of how well they played in the majors, especially Koepka.
Yeah, Koepka is still top 20 in the world somewhere?
I think something like that. I mean,
think about what his ranking would be if he stayed on tour and had that full schedule, and he would definitely be top 5.
Or even Bryson. I mean, arguably Bryson was playing some of the best golf in the world towards the end when he shot
that 58. Yeah, it was incredible
for Live. But just the world golf rankings as a whole, definitely there's some skew in there, and it's just you wonder like how it works. There's obviously a way of how it works, but just seeing somebody jump more than 4,000 spots in the world golf rankings as an amateur, I would understand it more if he was a pro. But I don't understand how that whole scenario works just because he's an amateur. I feel like the official world golf ranking should be strictly for professionals.
I don't understand how he was even ranked as an amateur. I'm not really too familiar with that process, but it's a bit weird to do the numbers on that and figure out how he ends up 68th after 1 week. But I'm sure this time 2 years time we will not be debating his world ranking. I can see him being up there top 3, top 5 in the world this day, even maybe this time next year.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what he does professionally, as we mentioned, with AT&T coming up as the first signature event. There's also the Genesis Tigers event, which is 2 weeks after that, with the waste management in the middle. These signature events are huge for him, especially with, like we mentioned, the guaranteed money, playing with the best players in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be the best fields of any tournaments that we see, this summer. And there's a lot of events that he'll be able to play. It's just a matter of if he wants to stay at Alabama for the year, finish the year, then turn pro. But missing out on those signature events, I feel like is definitely going to be something big for him.
So if you're in Nick Dunlap's shoes right now, what are you doing? You staying in college or are you going pro?
I'm turning professional
straight away. I don't think it's a question.
I don't think it's a question. You just beat. I mean, you beat. I would say that field was pretty good. I mean,
yeah, one of the strongest.
JT, Xander, like Sam Burns, Adam Hadwin, they were all in the top 6.
Scheffler was in the tournament, and he had a surprisingly low finish, but you had all the top guys playing that this week. Ricky playing. The only people I can think that weren't playing was Jordan Spieth and Rory. Of
the best players in the world right now, especially Rory. I mean, you never know what he would have done, especially with how scorable the course is and how well he's been playing. Obviously, he's in the little international swing right now. But yeah, I mean, you beat basically some of the top bunch players in the world. So if it was in my shoes, I would turn pro, go play the Farmers, go play, get ready for the signature events. You're going to go play some iconic courses in the schedule coming up: Pebble, Scottsdale, Riviera. And sure, there's a couple weeks off, with some other events.
Those Florida events at Arnold Palmer, the Players, the Valspar.
He can still play in the Players as an amateur, which I did read. So I'm sure we'll see him at the Players, if anything. But it'll be really interesting to see what he does. I know what I would do. I mean, we had a couple talks with us and the team, but I'm pretty sure a lot of us would all turn pro.
What surprises me most is how long it's taken him to decide. I really don't think I think it's a no-brainer. Maybe he wants to finish out his degree and have a backup if golf doesn't work out, maybe, even though that's not going to happen. But you would think he would have announced to the golf world by now what he was going to do, because if I were him, I would get on that straight away.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, huge week for Nick Dunlap, just an absolute history week for the game of golf.
Yeah.
Never thought that I never thought that we would see that in our lifetime, but obviously with the world of collegiate golfers being as good as it is, especially right now, you start to wonder if we're going to see a win from, Thor Bjornsson or Caleb Surratt, when these players are getting more opportunities, because obviously Thor Bjornsson played in Dubai last week.
His first 11th place finish.
Yeah, tied for 11th, his first competitive start in 5 months. That was definitely a topic that should have been talked about in Dubai. He did play last year. He was tied for the lead going into the weekend, so he does have some good history in Dubai. So definitely good to see him, and hopefully we'll see him in Stanford playing some more college events, and
hopefully we see him get an invite to one of these upcoming tour events, because that's probably the next person in my mind that I think could win a PGA Tour event after Nick Dunlap, because
for sure,
with the stories we've heard of Michael Thorbjornson, how good he is with Michael, our teammate, playing against him, he's just a machine and probably the next big thing after Nick Dunlap.
And he's proven he can do it. I mean, he almost won the Travelers.
Fourth place
2 years ago. Fourth place, yeah. I mean, he was 17 under at the Travelers, 4th place, and that was with a double late in the round. I mean, he was well in contention that final round. I mean, he was on absolute cruise control. So he's a player, and I've seen him in person because he's from Massachusetts. I'm from New Hampshire, so I've been in a couple of the same tournaments with him. I've never played with him, but I saw him growing up and just an absolute stud on the golf course. I
remember I played with him when I was 11 or 12 years old in Pinehurst at the US Kids tournament. And I remember playing with him in the practice round. No idea who he was. My first exposure to American golf. I tee up. This guy rips driver. I thought I was decent at that age, but he was, whatever you thought you were, he was 3 levels above. Insane. Ripped it. Everything was on the green. 2-putted everything. 1-putted birdies, pars, never a mistake. I remember sitting with him in the cart in the first hole, and I introduced myself. He introduced himself. I was like, "Oh, have you played this tournament before?" And he's like, "Yeah, actually, I won it last year." I was like, oh boy, here we go. I'm in for a tough week if this is my competition.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, that's a great story. And just, it's crazy how good how good they were when they were young. I mean, there was that post that talked about Nick Dunlap when he was 12 years old, shot 59.
59.
Like, I mean, when they interviewed his dad, like, when did you know your kid was good? I realized when he shot 59 when he was 12. I mean, I think any parent would really know that.
Breaking 80 for a lot of people that age is good.
Yeah, I know when I was 10.
Breaking 60 for 18.
And we're very good. Players, but we were just.
Did he specify 59 was 9 holes or 18 holes?
He shot 59 for 18. I think it was 13 under in a turn, or 12. It was 12 or 13 under in a tournament when he was 12. It's just absolutely absurd. I mean, maybe he had some length and the course was short, but that's still. I mean, you still got to play golf. You still got to play the course. 59's a 59.
I think these numbers kids now are posting, and back then is just the effect of Tiger Woods having the game. I think that's one of the long-term effects that we're only seeing now, of how much Tiger transformed the game, give people belief that they can go low, never stop playing good golf, and just destroying competition. And I think that's a testament to Tiger, and I can only imagine how much better the level of play is going to get in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think this next group of college golfers that's coming up is just going to be absolutely crazy. You mentioned Gordon Sargent earlier. He already has his tour card locked up for next year. The PGA Tour gave him a tour card. Obviously, he's got talent. I wouldn't say it's a pity tour card. I would say he definitely earned it.
Yeah.
Off, like every performance that he's had. Made the cut. He was low am at the U.S. Open. So, I mean, there's a lot of college talent that's going to be coming up, whether they choose to play on the PGA Tour or the LIV Tour.
Yeah.
There's rumors that Caleb Surratt's going to be signing with John Rahm's team.
Oh, really?
So that's going to be interesting to see. Yeah. I know that one of the players from the LIV Golf Promotions, Kieran Vincent, brother of Scott Vincent, he already is, like, I think, confirmed to join Rahm's team. And then there was talks that Caleb Surratt might join. I don't know, but most of the time these LIV rumors are pretty true.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if that happens, because there was right after college for Eugenio Chacarra, he played golf at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And he chose to go right to LIV. I mean, I'm sure he got offered life-changing money, and he's part of the Fireballs, which is captained by Sergio Garcia. But it's just interesting to see what this next wave of college golfers are going to do, whether they want to choose the PGA Tour or LIV, or maybe even go to Europe, depending on what their PGA Tour university rankings could be.
A question for you is, you're Nick Dunlap. Greg Norman calls you and he says $80 million come to LIV. Are you taking it? Do you think he should take it?
I don't think he should take it. Would I take it? Probably.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I am a big advocate of LIV golf. People have a lot of opinions, mostly negative. I love just professional golf as a whole. That's why this podcast is why I'm doing this podcast. I just love talking about professional golf. I like LIV. I mean, you've got some of the bigger names in the world: Mickelson, Koepka, DeChambeau, now Rahm. I mean, it's not a fluke. Like, LIV golf is not a fluke, and there's a lot to come from it. And it's just interesting to see. I wouldn't doubt that Greg Norman called Nick Dunlap. I mean, it's just absolutely historic. And I know that there's an example of I think it was Pearson Coody. He got an offer from straight out of college, and he'd said no, and he wants
to become an all-time great
on the PGA Tour. So he still had to go through the Corn Ferry Tour and ended up winning straight away, and he won in Maine.
That kind of attitude just shows he's going straight to the top as well.
Absolutely. And him and his brother Parker, I mean, they're both on the PGA Tour right now. But, hopefully wish them well. But this next wave of college golfers, definitely, there's a lot of places to play, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they all are going to do moving forward. But looking towards next week, we have the Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey. Obviously, they're playing both courses, the North and the South. Max Homa, champion last year, with Keegan Bradley being the runner-up.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight into the event, or any people that you're going to be looking out for? Any thoughts?
You know me, I always look out for the Irish guys in tour. I'll be supporting Shane Lowry big time during next week. But Farmers Insurance Open has always been a tournament I loved. because back home in Ireland, whenever the golf would be on, that's almost like the start of the season when it was cold back home. You turn on the TV and you see the perfect California beach with those backdrops. I'm watching the best players in the world play on that course, and obviously you've had the U.S. Open on that course.
Yep.
With John Rahm winning a few years ago, and Tiger obviously winning in 2008. But I'm always going to root for Shane Lowry, man. You know that.
Yeah.
And I think Max Homa obviously likes the course, so he's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on because he's been kind of low key lately. So it'd be nice to see him make a charge for it. But I'll always root for my European people. Who do you fancy for this week?
I actually got a message from one of my buddies this morning. He's in one of those like one and done leagues where you pick a player and once you use them for the week, they're done for the season. So he asked me who I thought could be people to look out for, and obviously Jason Day. He's won twice at Torrey in this event. He's always someone that seems to sneakily play well at this golf course. Scott Stallings, believe it or not, is someone I'd watch out for.
Really?
He seems to always have he's won the Farmers Insurance Open, been in a playoff in another year. I think it was the year after he won. So he's someone that always seems to play well here. I would expect him to at least make the cut. He missed the cut last week by one, but played well in the week before that. Morikawa, someone that played well last year, he's in the field again. Sahith Theegala, he was, I think, in the top 8 last year. Someone who's been playing well as of late, played well in the Century, nearly won there. So that's someone to look out for. But a couple sleepers, some of those California boys.
Think Spieth could be a sleeper?
Spieth isn't in the field this week.
He's not playing next week?
No, he's not. But Patrick Rogers is someone that I was had a sneaky feeling. He played golf at Stanford, obviously. This is in California. He's in the field. He's someone who hasn't broke through. He was almost close last year when he lost in the playoff against Akshay at the Barbasol. But that's someone who I feel like, is so due to break through. I forget about the other couple sleepers I think I mentioned Austin Eckroat. He's been playing decent. He's someone that I think could have a good week. I mean, you never know. It's a big field, 2 courses, so a lot of people are playing. You never know. It could be one of those weeks where a rookie plays well, or anybody can play well. You never know week in, week out. But this is obviously one of those events that historically the people that have played well there are going to keep playing well there. Yeah. So seeing Homa, Morikawa, Theegala, anyone from California is probably going to be up there at the end.
Yeah. Can't ever rule out Scotty Scheffler either.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know if Scotty's in the field this week.
Really?
I don't know if he's in the field this week. I should have been looked that up heading into it.
He might be saving himself for the AT&T because it's a signature event. But.
Yeah, I know one of the bigger groupings. When I did look, I think it was Keegan Bradley, Jason Day, and Minwoo Lee, but we're all in a group together, so that's definitely a cool group to look out for. But just before we wrap up the first ever episode of the Back Nine Banter, we just have to let everybody know that Connor and I do have some beef when it comes to the PGA Tour week in, week out. I am probably one of the biggest Ricky Fowler fans growing up, and to this day, and still am. I have a video from Ricky when I was young. Was lucky enough that he sent me a video, so ever since I've gotten that video, Ricky's always been near and dear in my heart, and I've always been a Ricky supporter, wearing Puma stuff and all of that. And obviously, as Connor mentioned, he's a big
Shane Lowry fan, and it was
Seamus Power.
Seamus Power, but not as much Seamus as Shane Lowry. But I think it's important to note that when we were talking about the Nick Dunlap being the first amateur to win a tour event since '91, Bryce here conveniently left out the fact Shane Lowry won the Irish Open as an amateur, the 5th major as we call it in Ireland. Back in 2009, I think he won it, so just shout out to Shane Lowry for that. Our beef goes back a long time between Shane and Ricky, so we always keep a close eye to see who finishes higher in the weekly term results. But it must be tough for Ricky competing against a major champion or golf champion. Like Shane just sets the bar for people like Ricky.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, Ricky does have the 5th major in the U.S. winning the Players in one of the most historic fashions, going 7 under in the last 6 holes.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. Obviously, there's no beef this week because we both missed the cut. So
Obviously, you know, Shane tried as hard as he did hold out on the last hole. He did think he made the cut, but unfortunately he missed it because, you know, he just is being Shane. Much love for Shane at the end of the day, but
we could go on for hours on this.
A missed cut at 12 under versus a missed cut at 2 under, same thing. At the end of the day, they both aren't working the weekend. So, you know.
They both aren't working the weekend, but if you're going to miss the cut, you might as well miss it by 10.
Exactly, and that's what Ricky did. You know, I mean, when he made the triple on the second hole of the tournament, he was basically out of it. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see. No Ricky this week at the Farmers Insurance Open.
Resting up for the AT&T.
I don't know if we'll see him there, but
you don't think so?
I'm not sure if I know he's not playing this week. I did look in the field. Ricky's not playing. I don't know if Shane's. I would imagine that Shane's going to be playing.
Yeah, Shane wants to get. I would imagine
we'll have to be more prepared than we were this week. Obviously, the first episode of the podcast, so we'll have to just do a little bit more prepping to see if Ricky and Shane are going to be in the same. And we'll keep an eye on Seamus too, as he likes to dabble himself into the conversations every now and then. It's tough when I get 2 Irishmen versus 1. I mean, I only have one favorite. You know, I've got multiple I have to go against, but we'll see how the wins stack up because obviously last year it was 1 to none. So and Ricky was that one. So.
Yeah, when these guys retire, they'll look back and see how many majors they won, and you know, Ricky's trending towards 0. Shane 1 major in the Open, returning to Portrush in 2025. So I fancy defending it on that course, but you know, as Ricky might be there, might not be. He might not have that exemption, whereas Shane does. But
Ricky will be there. I mean, you know, after his last sole performance at the U.S. Open last year, you know, come in 3rd or 4th or whatever he came in, you know, good look for Ricky, and you know,
just not quite over the line, but
he's in the Masters this year, and you know, Ricky performs at the Masters, so we'll see him. Yeah. We'll see him up at the top of the leaderboard.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure we will see him somewhere in the leaderboard, top 50.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up episode 1 of the Back Nine Banter. Thank you guys for listening. If anybody's listening, obviously, first episode of the podcast, a lot to learn from, a lot to move on from. You got to be more prepared for sure. But I feel like we had a great conversation this week. There was a lot to talk about with Nick Dunlap being the first amateur to win a PGA Tour event in 33 years. Just absolutely stunning stuff. Great conversation for week 1. And this won't be the last episode for sure. Hopefully, as things go on, things will be more of second nature, you know, using podcast software, finding a place to be, and all that stuff. So things will get better as we move on.
Before you wrap up, your 1 second to guess next week's winner. Who's it going to be?
I'm going to go with Sahith Theegala.
All right, I'll go with Max Homa defending.
All right, so those are our picks for next week for the Farmers Insurance Open. If I don't have Connor on weekly, I'll have another guest. I'm never going to do a podcast by myself, but I'll make sure that we do weekly picks, people to look out for, recap of the last week, and once the live golf season gets kicking, that'll be some more conversation to have. And we'll dive into more DP World Tour stuff too, when it's a little bit more relevant, with bigger events coming up. So,
well, the Irish Open is until August, so we'll have to wait a while.
We'll have to keep a lookout for the Irish Open when Shane Lowry misses the cut. So we will catch you guys next week. We'll do a Farmers Insurance Open recap after the event is done. We're going to try and do Monday recording, Tuesday posts. We had a little bit of a conflict this week, so that couldn't happen. So hopefully this episode does come out on Wednesday, the 24th, which is going to be the opening round of the Farmers Insurance Open. As it starts on a Wednesday, ends on a Saturday. But as I mentioned, the podcast is just starting, a lot to improve on, a lot to learn from. And as we get support and feedback from people that listen and watch, it's going to be on YouTube and Spotify. So things can only get better. And it was a pleasure doing the first ever episode of the Back Nine Banter with you, Connor, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. Our first real experience of getting into a golf podcast, so it was nice to dip our toes in and see how it went, and I think we got more confident as it went on, so I'm looking forward to seeing how the next time goes.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys, everybody, for listening, and we will catch you guys next week for the recap of the Farmers Insurance Open.
Thank you.